Okay, so my name is Landen DeForest, and today I am joined with one of the CFIs working at Purdue University. He's worked here for about 6 months, just kind of overall asking him a couple questions about his experiences. We are interviewing in one of the classrooms over by the airport, and pretty much it's just us over here, so we have a pretty private interview for today. So starting off, I just have our first question of what do you think the biggest safety issues you've seen working as a CFI at Purdue?
The biggest safety issues I think that I've seen at Purdue would have to be people not being aware of what's going on around them. In other words, not checking weather before they want to go and fly, not looking to their left and their right before they're going taxiing, maybe taxiing too fast. They're just not, in other words, they don't really keep their head up on a swivel, looking all around them, kind of watching out for these things. They kind of wait for ATC to kind of point things out. They're not planning ahead. But really, I think that comes down to checking weather to come up to it. I know I mentioned a lot there, but those are some of the safety concerns that I've seen here, at least being the biggest one, is just lack of awareness.
Gotcha. So kind of building upon that for the second question, how do you think some of these safety issues could be improved upon? I know you talked a little bit just about overall being more aware. What do you think people could implement while they're in the cockpit or even before they even step foot in the plane?
I think they just need to be more aware and stop thinking that things can't happen to them. Usually when people get into a situation, they're like, oh, it could never happen to me. It could never happen to me. It's like, no, it could absolutely happen to you. And I think it comes with a lot of complacency. People just get comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest issue, is that people need to constantly be wanting to get eager to learn more and do more and, always keep thinking that this could happen. So we got to plan ahead to mitigate risk as much as possible. So yeah, I think it's a comfortability thing that people need to break.
I think kind of adding on to that, I remember I had a CFI and his whole thing that he'd always say is I can't scare you more than you can scare yourself. It's I can yell at you as much as I want about how you're doing stuff wrong, but until you actually see that yourself, that you're making a mistake or you're flying carelessly or not looking left and right before you taxi, I know that's something that he always kind of stressed, and definitely sounds like you guys have in common there. So I know a common area for concern for students working on their private and commercial pilot certificates is the overcrowded practice areas, because they have to do all these different maneuvers. They have to make sure they're within tolerances, and when they're focusing so much on their instruments, they don't really kind of check the MFD to kind of see where other planes are at. How do you think that professional flight students can best mitigate the risks associated with being in busy airspace?
Well, you got to look at it like this. You're at a big flight school. This is probably the busiest Delta Airport here in Indiana. So it's got a lot of activity every day. That being said, you need to come up with stress management. You need to be able to, relieve yourself of that and focus up before you go and fly. Instead of letting the nerves get to you, where you forget to look for things to your left and to your right. You need to kind of find a way to compose yourself and remain calm. And confidence would come with that as well. You need to be able to find confidence in the fact in your flying ability and your decision-making skills of being able to control what's going on around you and do the best you can to avoid any risk or accidents or anything like that from happening. And in the event that something does happen in a check ride or something like that, to your point, well, there's a rule, if there's an emergency or something like that, you can deviate away from all regulations in order to for the safety of flight. Now, obviously, when you get on the ground, depending on what that deviation was, you better be able to explain yourself of why you did it. But obviously, if it was for good reason, then you'd be just fine. And a DP would fault you for that because you were avoiding risk, you were avoiding danger, hazard. So I don't know if there's really a place that we could go and do it. It'd just be more of how can we again, use the tools and resources around us to safely and confidently find a place of area to practice. Because check rides, the biggest thing is stress, nerves.
Yeah.
So sometimes, again, that goes back to lack of awareness. You get so honed in at worrying about your airspeed, your altitude, where I'm at, to where you're forgetting about, hey, look over at your TCAS system real quick and see, where this traffic's at. And then sometimes even then, you can ask your DP, be like, hey, I see this on the MFD, while I'm getting ready to set up for this, could you help me look for that traffic or something like that? I don't know if they'll be able to necessarily do that, but I know in my past experiences, I know that they've definitely helped look outside for traffic and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Multiple times, because just like you, they don't want to die either. So.
Fair. Yeah. So kind of in your opinion, it's like kind of half and half between like both inside and outside the cockpit, like trying to get in that right kind of testing mentality and, you know, observing yourself, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, but also just being aware of yourself and others while you're in the aircraft too.
Yeah.
So, so that then leads me into my last question is, how do you think that students can work together with their CFIs to be safer? And then kind of if you were to integrate like one kind of end all be all hypothetical solution, what would that be and why?
Well, the one thing the students can do with their CFIs to definitely help build on their skills is to ask questions. Come ready to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Come ready to, you know, absorb knowledge. You know, and if you have something that you have a question about, you know, again, I think that's the most important thing to do is to ask, push your CFI as much as your CFI wants to push you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know I'm not perfect CFI. I don't know everything. I look a lot of things up, and sometimes I like it when I get asked a hard question or something like that because it stumps me.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me have to push myself because I don't want to let my student down as much as I don't want my student to let me down, but I don't really think my student could let me down. I understand the learning standpoint of it. I'm just saying that it's a unison teamwork.
Uh-huh.
So, and then if you want like one thing, end all be all, I guess if I had to come up with something, again, it's just like, you know, it comes down to, again, just be aware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, care.
Yeah.
Care about what it is you're doing. Care about others around you. Care about the environment you're in, you know, and then find pride. Now, pride's a good thing and a bad thing in my opinion, but you should, you know, I guess when I say pride, is find your confidence
Mm-hmm.
that you can do it, that you're going to be okay. And then if you don't want to fly, it's like, you know, no one's got a gun to your head.
Fair.
You know, so you can make the decision.
Yeah.
And no one's going to fault you for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable. Now, you know, if we're flying in 5-knot winds all the time, you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm probably going to be like, hey, today's like a 15-knot wind day.
Yeah.
We should probably go fly because I need you to push your limitations. So be willing to expand your mind. Be willing to adapt and give it a shot. Try to leave fear out of the picture sometimes.
Got it.
So being a more composed student will help your CFI as well to help you unlock things that you didn't even know that you could even do.
Yeah, so it's all about like asking questions, being prepared to learn, just kind of building upon that and trying to make yourself better, pushing your CFI and also pushing yourself too, and kind of, you know, trying to find limits that'll make you a better pilot at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, I very much appreciate your time, and I will let you go train with your next student. So thank you.
You know,